Hello everybody. Welcome to the Meet the Makers 4 session. My name is Tom Hamilton, I'm economy team, and I'm going to be moderating today's session. We've got 3 really interesting projects and 6 interesting speakers. So, and they're all looking at different aspects of visitor experience. We're going to be getting straight on, and hopefully today we won't have any technical glitches. So I'm not going to waste any more time other than to introduce our first speaker, who is Kate Wellham, who's the Immersion Coordinator from Live Cinema UK and the Project Manager Content Creator at Head Holiday. Okay, welcome aboard.
Ooh.
Hi.
Great. First technical glitch out of the way. Right, okay, I'm just going to turn off my video and share my screen with you. Now, hopefully you can all see that, and it's nice and big. So hello, and thank you for joining me in Pretend UK within Pretend Texas. So let's start with who are you and what is that on your head? My name is Kate, and I began my strange path as a freelance music journalist, during which time I was lucky enough to travel a lot to cover festivals all over Europe, and I still do get to do that, which is great. I've always been passionate about cultural tourism and the role that place plays in so many of our peak experiences. Journalism led to digital content, then videography, then marketing, and then research, which it turns out makes an ideal immersion coordinator. And just in case you don't know what that is, my role at Live Cinema UK involves a bit of all of the above, but within the context of using immersive tech for culture. So that's me, and the thing on my head is Queenie, my 360-degree camera, which we'll get into a bit later. A bit about Live Cinema UK. So Live Cinema UK works around the world to promote, produce and research the very broad genre known as live cinema. So this is any kind of screening event that has some live element to it. In other words, it's something you can only experience in its entirety by actually being there rather than watching it on Netflix. We want to get people out of the house by creating these unmissable events. And these events might involve live soundtracks, interactive tech, theatrical interventions, weird venues and archive film, but we haven't really placed any limits on the kind of liveness that it involves. Now, at the time the pandemic hit, we were deep into our work in the world of Full Dome, which is a type of immersive screen or venue that allows you to watch virtual reality type content, but without using a headset. We ran some test events for the public, and we found that 360-degree travel and nature videos were universally popular, and that half of our walk-up audience who came to see them had never even used a VR headset before. So having a look around at what was available, we found that there wasn't really a curated source for this kind of content online, and that the 360-degree content that was available to non-headset owners was usually presented as flat, scrollable video, so like the kind that you might see on Facebook. And this was most people's interaction with 360-degree video if they didn't have a headset. And we felt that the audiences we met during our research were really missing out on the immersive experience, which is such a waste of magic, really, we thought. And nowadays we have the added complications that people can't travel as much as they used to, and that they might have fears around travel, and they're being much more careful about planning their trips in the future. Meanwhile, we also know that people's mental health has taken a severe hit this past year, and this is only made worse if they haven't had regular access to nature, which has been scientifically proven to have beneficial effects on well-being. So introducing our solution, Head Holiday. Head Holiday is a new virtual reality platform for travel, culture and well-being. It's had 75k funding from Innovate UK and was built in partnership with Marmello Digital. Head Holiday is a smartphone-enabled app with a curated selection of 360-degree video content from around the world, which audiences can view immersively. And curation is key to this project alongside the technology, because this is an element that we felt was missing from platforms such as YouTube 360. And you can use a Head Holiday on most smartphones using an inexpensive cardboard or plastic viewing device. And this form of viewing gives you a first-person perspective, which is almost like being there. And obviously, if you've used a VR headset, you'll know. And you can also view the content as flat and scrollable on our website, so you don't need a device for that. It's been designed with a Spotify-like interface with playlists and channels, and you can save your favourites for later. And we also have a feedback system built in, which asks people every so often how they feel after watching a certain video, so we can measure their impact. So Head Holiday is a travel research tool, a slow cinema experience, and a dose of digital nature all in one. We tend to avoid the phrase virtual reality when we're talking to our users, to avoid that self-excluding phenomenon. And also because we're immersing people in the real world in experiences they can go on to have in real life rather than in a virtual world. I also wanted to mention a couple of encouraging stats that we found out recently that made us think that we were on the right track. The first is that 15% of the UK adult population have done a virtual tour of some kind since March last year. And also the top travel app in the UK is Google Earth, because people just love wandering around the world from home, even if it's just with static images. Now, our content is a mixture of videos from other content creators, marketing and promotional campaigns, and increasingly we've been creating video ourselves. And content falls broadly into three categories: travel, culture, and nature. So we have peaceful nature scenes, busy cities, hotels, festivals, gigs, and beaches. And last year we filmed in Croatia, Slovenia, Sweden, Denmark, and Germany, as well as in the UK. Our videos might be still, or they might have walks, train journeys, electric scooter rides, car rides, and drones. Every video has information in the description, and we can also include ad placements and links as well. So this is the best way I can demonstrate what we film without giving everybody a headset. So videos look a bit jumpy when I play these, but we're streaming into a stream, so making the internet work really hard here. One sec. So this is one of our most favourite videos. This is a swim in Lake Bled in Slovenia. And for this, I was actually wearing the camera on my head at the time. So you can imagine what I looked like. This is a video that we did in partnership with a hotel in Copenhagen. So we went around the city and just got a few views of the place, and we also got some views from inside the hotel as well, which we mixed in, particularly their lovely spa. This was a gig at Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen, which was very impressive. And also this is just 4 minutes of guinea pigs eating and squeaking because, you know, why not? So when we came to recruit testers, we thought we'd struggle to get 300 people signed up for this new thing that didn't exist yet. But in the end, we had more than 1,000 people asking to test who signed up in less than a week. And that's entirely organic sign-ups. So I don't think we spent more than £20 on Facebook, and we didn't have any product to show people at the time. So we were really blown away. We had a broad age range, a lot of regular travellers, and almost 80% had no experience with virtual reality at all. And we also had a lot of people getting in touch who said they were currently experiencing mental health problems and wanted to see if the app could help. The feedback was really encouraging. Everyone said that they found it easy to use. A huge majority said it had a positive effect on their mood, and almost everyone said that they recommend it to a friend and that they got new travel ideas from using it. And the only real negative feedback we got was about the headsets themselves, which we didn't actually make, but we just bought and then sent out free to testers. And we realised that the reason people were having any problems with those headsets was because they were spending so much longer in the experiences than we ever thought they would. So the cardboard was kind of cutting into their noses after a while because the models that we used weren't really designed to be worn for so long, which is a good problem to have. A few lovely comments here about the content, the variety of experiences and the impact that they had on people. Apologies if some of these are a little bit too small to read on this screen, so you just have to trust me that they're all saying very nice things. So what now? Well, we have a product that works. We've got some great feedback and we've really loved creating the content. Our project funding finishes at the end of this month, so we'll be up and running at some point in April. And now we want to speak to anyone who thinks that they might want to collaborate with us in any way, which could mean having a channel on the app. It might mean sponsoring some headsets, running some campaigns, or making the app available to their own communities. And we'd also be interested in speaking to anyone who wants to license their own version of the app to be reskinned and rebranded. But ultimately, we want to make the app sustainable as a business and useful to as many people as possible. So we're open to joint ventures and other investment opportunities so that we can continue to make content, because that's what we love to do. So if you would like to chat to us about that, then send me an email after this session and say hello. And that's me done.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Kate. Thank you for reminding us of what we've all been missing.
Sorry.
Well, there's hope. There's hope coming. And to welcome onto the stage Lisa Brooke, the project director, who's going to come in and help field some of the questions and that from our audience, I hope. Okay, yeah. I'll leave you to it, and I'll just come back on in about, we've got about 9 minutes for questions, so I'll step off and leave you to it and come back in at the end to usher you off the stage. Okay.
Lovely. Thank you, Tom. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa. I'm the director of Live Cinema UK, and Head Holiday is one of our projects and has been our main project during lockdown while we've not been able to do live events. We've got a question. Thank you for your lovely feedback. That's really nice, everyone.
Yeah, this is really encouraging.
Yeah, it's really nice. So first question from Tara. Were there any unexpected outcomes of your audience research that challenged your assumptions?
I think how many people wanted to use it who hadn't ever experienced VR before. And I think it might be because of the way that we talked about it, because all the way through when we were trying to recruit testers, we really steered away from saying VR because we already had that experience of, of people self-excluding. But it really surprised me how many people got in touch and said they wanted to try it who genuinely never, done any kind of VR before, never put a headset on. So yeah, that was a really nice surprise.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it was kind of a sad realization, but over 50% of the beta testers, they said they were currently experiencing mental health problems, and that's really encouraged us to try and push this out while we're still in some kind of lockdown, so we can ease people back into some kind of normality and give them a nice experience. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the other data. We're doing another round of beta testing next week with feedback, and then we'll hopefully do a final version, push a final version out. Actually, that leads me on to the next question from Katie Taylor. Is it available to the public yet? No, not yet. However, I'm going to put in the chat a link to register as a beta tester. We're doing our final beta test, like I say, next week. We've rebuilt the entire app in Unity based on feedback and the way that our developers initially built it. There was a problem with one of the supported plugins or something that Apple doesn't like anymore. So there was a significant delay to getting the second beta out and to getting the iOS version up at all. But now we've overcome that, and it's been entirely rebuilt, and it's a lot smoother and just amazing having that Unity driver behind it. So we'll be, register as a beta tester, and we'll try and get you on the next round, which will be next week. And then we are looking to do a soft launch, hopefully in April, just to run it to see, how many, if our research about how many people are interested in this without any marketing, because we had over 1,000 people register to be beta testers without marketing, like Kate said. So I think we're going to, push it out and see what income comes just from having Google AdMob ads, whilst working with our brilliant business development consultant, Ruth Colson, who's also in the chat, to target travel partners, but also tech partners who, obviously, we're not app developers. The brilliant Marmello Digital have built this for us. So we're also looking for people to help take us forward to the next stage, because we've never run an app before or an app business. So we're learning as we go, but we think this is a really incredible product and opportunity. Just having a look. Do you think Head Holiday will carry on being your main gig after lockdown ends, or will it run alongside Live Cinema? So Live Cinema UK, like I say, for us, it was the opportunity to get the Innovate funding from the COVID fast response funds. Like that was why this came about. But Kate has had this idea for years. It's your baby, isn't it, Kate? So at the moment we're looking, we're thinking about, can Head Holiday be its own business? Should that be a joint venture and set up with another partner? And we're completely open to exploring that, because it is very different to what we usually do. But Kate works on all our 360 projects, and I've mentioned in the chat about the full dome work that we're doing. That's also Kate who leads on that. But I think for us, we love this, and we love going out and filming and curating videos. for people. So we want to carry on with it. It's just, it might be a side business from live cinema. We'll see.
Sorry, I've just spotted one above that, which is about whether the experiences have sound. Yes, they do have sound, but we varied it a little bit. So we actually asked people whether they preferred the ambient sound. We've also got some music tracks over some of the compilation videos as well. And it plays through the phone or headphones if you're using headphones.
Question from Emma. Hi Emma, are you planning to push this out to proper VR headsets? Proper. So yes, we've got an Oculus beta version that we might try and push out next month as well. With Google Cardboards, like these are the cardboards that we have made, and we've got a more substantial plastic headset that's going out to the next round of beta testers. We want to move away from plastic headsets. So if anyone wants to partner on creating an environmentally friendly headset. With Google Cardboard, Kate, there was a big explosion, wasn't there, of everyone was making cardboards years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. But what we found is our audience have never seen them before. So it's new to them.
They disappeared and disappeared. It was really strange. So we're kind of bringing back this bit of, really simple bit of kit that actually just, it's like magic. It just gives this experience to people with just a bit of cardboard and some plastic. It's amazing.
We've got loads of questions, so I know we don't have much time left, so Tom might pop up and tell me to stop answering, but please do register in our showcase booth, and or email Kate directly, register your interest, and we'll talk to you offline about things. So what is your financial model for revenue? We're working on lots of different options in terms of sponsorship and partnerships with the travel industry. We are finalists in the Lufthansa Flying Lab startup pitch tomorrow, aren't we, Kate? Yeah. So yeah, we're speaking to different travel partners. We think it'll be sustainable just running on adverts and subscriptions. We will probably do a subscription model for people to get a headset and opt out of seeing adverts. That's what we're looking at the moment. So we'll be testing that in the next few months. Target audience demographic. We've found that it's skewed a bit older. So, we've been seeing sort of 45 to 60-year-olds, I think. The people that have been really engaged with it has been the main demographic. And yeah, people who've never engaged with VR before. Yeah. Would you say that's right?
Anybody who doesn't have a headset, probably, because if you have got a headset, then you kind of fully into virtual reality. But anybody who doesn't really.
Have you been approached by any mental health or medtech users? Yes, we are doing a pilot with a young people's mental health charity in Bradford, who will be testing the iOS version in the next month. But it's kind of a hard nut for us to crack to get into the wellbeing sector and mental health. Like, how do you get an app onto the NHSX library, for example? So if anyone has skills in that area and wants to talk to us, please let us know. Do we have any competitors, Kate?
I mean, we did have a look around when we were researching this, and what we found was that there wasn't anything out there that kind of did this combination of things. So kind of had the curation and had the 360 and was asking people to use viewing devices to watch stuff in 360. So I think there's one other that we found, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically skewed a lot towards kind of action and adventure. Whereas this, we just wanted people to have the opportunity, if they want, to just sit in a place where nothing's happening and just kind of take it in. The digital nature aspect of it was really important for us as well.
And I think, there is nothing that is curated video. There's a lot of slightly dodgy apps that pull random 360 videos through from YouTube, which is terrible and also is breaking YouTube's licensing agreements. But the fact is that nowhere is curating this and making it a really easy experience. I suppose the sort of competitors that we look at is, things like Wonder, which is, I think that's all photo based, and obviously Google Earth. Right. Yeah. So Google Earth, people are just looking at static images, and people don't know that, oh, you can get video. How much better is that? So, and there isn't anything that is travel 360 targeted at the consumer market. There's no competitor at the moment.
Tom's question.
Which one about virtual production?
Already captioned it. Yeah, I mean, possibly. So we've reached out to about getting access to use different productions that people are showing. We've actually been reaching out to a lot of people, so tourist boards and content creators whose work we've seen on YouTube, for example, and just anybody who's making really good 360 video that we think fits. We've contacted and said, hey, can we use your stuff? And also in the test period, we got a lot of really good feedback about what sort of stuff people like, so we can go after more of that in the future.
Can I just answer the question really quickly about sound? Yes, they have sound, and we have a 360 VR sound recorder, so it's binaural sound that we capture ambient, and some of the videos also have narration that we license from people, for example, doing a tour of Central Park. So it's a mixture.
Brilliant.
I think that's most of the questions. Thank you.
No, thank you both. That's just fascinating, and as I said, a rare glimpse of foreign shores to inspire us all. Thank you very much, Kate and Lisa. As they said, please get in touch with them afterwards. We have to move on, but thank you very much and enjoy the last day of the conference.
Thanks for having us.
Bye. Right, I'd like to now welcome Cal Jepps and Lottie Webb, who are senior designers at City ID and the project manager on PopMap, which is a prototype project built in partnership with Calvium and Bristol City Council for a new personalised, hyper-localised and pedestrian-centred approach to the narratives contained within city maps. Okay, without further ado, welcome to Cal and Lottie.
Hello.
Hi. There you go.
Hi. Thanks, Tom. So I'm Cal. I'm a senior designer at City ID. I'm joined with Lottie, who's also a senior designer. And we're going to talk about this prototype mapping application that we've developed in partnership with Council. So try and share my screen, and this is where everything will go wrong, I'm sure. How's that? Are we in? I think we're in. Let me know if not. So a bit about who we are. City ID, we aim to improve people's understanding and experience of place, primarily through information and wayfinding systems. So some of the stuff that you see on the streets, here's a few examples from Birmingham, Moscow, and New York, but we're also well known for pioneering the legible city movement, which started in Bristol. And part of the output from that was the world's first on-street mapping system, maps that were heads up. And sorry, I apologize, this is going very slowly. There we go. So today, everything that had been created for Bristol was expressed primarily through on-street and printed information, but there's always been a vision to digitise those assets and explore opportunities for how to reveal hyperlocal, personalised information. So almost working as an antidote to digital non-place and give back some authenticity to the information in terms of who owns it and where it's coming from, who the information is for. And then for the user, giving a sense of belonging and personal agency, essentially relocalizing the internet. So the Bristol and Bath Creative R&D project gave us the opportunity to explore some of these themes through the project PopMap. And the idea behind PopMap was to reveal the activity and the events, not only that happen in venues across Bristol, but also that happen in public space in a time-sensitive way that also responds to your location and your preferences. So whereas other platforms are focused on pre-planning, this was more about the here and the now and what you could do around you, essentially revealing the quirky, hidden and surprising things that happen in city space that you may not know about, and aim to encourage all forms of cultural activity. So we worked through this project collating information and data, and throughout engaging stakeholders, inclusivity experts, and also experts in consequence scanning and responsible design. And then working hand in hand with Calvium to develop the code behind this. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second, and I'm going to reshare my screen. It's so unprofessional, isn't it? Voila. So let me refresh this. So this is a short demo about the PopMap prototype. So when you open up this application, and this is all within a web browser on your phone, this isn't an application. You can see that the mapping detail that we've developed, all of this is drawn from aerial photography and puts the focus on the pedestrian layer. So as you start to zoom in, you can give a sense of your walk circle, and this would be centered on your location within Bristol. However, I'm not currently in Bristol. But because we've drawn it from aerial photography, we can be as accurate down to the point of mapping benches. So if there were an event on this bench right here, you could put it directly into that space, all the way down to parking icons and other sort of water features and accessibility features like steps and ramps. So it is this pedestrian layer that we feel is very unique to this platform. Also 3D illustrated buildings to help with navigation around the city, entrances to buildings, and using a similar graphic language that's used on all the information within the street. So there's that continuity between what you're seeing on signs and what you're holding in your hand. So the first feature I want to highlight is the area guide. So independent research has shown that in order for people to create their own mental map of a city, they navigate primarily via districts or neighborhoods, or people saying, well, if you like this particular neighborhood, why don't you try this other neighborhood? So we felt like that was a really important thing to showcase within this. So if we just click on Christmas Steps, you open up this carousel window, which gives a little bit of information about the key activities that happen in this area. And as we scroll through, it'll jump to the next one. And what is also being highlighted here is the active frontage. So it's giving people a flavour of what's live in the city. These are the areas where activity is happening. If we zoom out a bit further, you can start to see the little hot pockets around Bristol where activity is happening. And in time, this would include more information about the area, ticket websites, events that are happening in the space. So if we jump out of this and we go into the menu, no, we don't. We go into this menu. The next thing I want to show is trails and routes. So there's one programmed into the application at the moment. If I click on that, it shows you a harbourside loop, and this gives us the opportunity to reveal curated walks or tours. But the interesting thing that we've done is, rather than other more ubiquitous platforms that tend to be focused towards the road user and show a line running through the centre line of the roads, because of the layer that we've drawn, we're able to highlight the pedestrian space itself. So you get more of a sense of the crossings that you need to go over, the roads, the side of the pavement that would work best for you, all the way down to the bridges that you're going to cross. And the idea is to give people a bit more agency in terms of exploring these spaces and wandering off the beaten track. And in due course, we'd want this routing to work within the events section of the application, which I will show you now. If we jump into the events, you're given this list of categories, and all these events have been filtered, have been collated, sorry, in a pre-COVID world. So as we were developing this application, we had spent a lot of time collating content and speaking with stakeholders, and then COVID hit and all the events were suddenly cancelled. So this is more for this will have its time and its place once events start to open up again. But if we click on, what should we click on? I know that live music has a lot going on. You're given this this clock, which we feel is the unique part of this. It's about which you can change the time settings, and as you're changing them, you get a live information about how many results you're being given. So if we view these results, you're jumped into your nearest one. So this is showing the Arnolfini, and again, in time, we'd want to include more information in this, but you can start to see the highlighting of pedestrian space and the events that happen there. We can scroll through and it jumps to the next one. So again, this is more about the, oh, I've just finished work, I've got an hour, what can I do? What's happening? Where can I go that's one source for all the different events and cultural activities that are happening in Bristol? So as I said, this application in due course will have its moment, but COVID opened up new opportunities and use cases for this platform. And I'm going to hand over to Lottie now, who'll be able to tell you a little bit more about what we've been doing since this. I think. Am I? Lottie, I believe you're muted.
Always happens. Thanks, Cal. So as Cal was talking about this being a moment in time, a lot of this information was actually collated back in May, and we've got what we're looking at now is how we can transition this kind of application to work with the challenges of the pandemic and kind of move into new user cases. So looking at potentially how conditional information, how the restrictions, how access might be able to be revealed, as well as events later on. There's this kind of duality of information at the moment from a kind of national level that's broadcast out, but also there's a need of information or communication at a local level, something that's really up to date. So we've been working directly with stakeholders over the last few months to understand their kind of challenges and its successes, the kind of requirements that they're needing to kind of publish to their customers, and how we can help through this app to reveal kind of an adapted new normal and promote that kind of resilience and support communities coming back as they kind of reopen. So what we're looking at actually are more of a collaborative platform, something that stakeholders might be able to input their information, update their information, keep it live, making sure that the data supply chain is a bit more active, a bit more fresh. And what this will help us to do is, within that kind of supported community of stakeholders, is create a platform or kind of the information that's curated and create more of a human experience at Bristol. So yeah, so what we're really looking at the moment is building that out, building out a better back end for the application, and getting more users testing it and understanding how we need to move forward to collate that information and make sure that it's updated in a timely way.
Great. So I think that's us in terms of the presentation. I see there's loads of good questions. I like all the people saying that it's making them want to visit Bristol, and Bristol looks lovely. So I guess it's doing its job.
Yeah, I'll actually put up a link. There's a link on our showcase as well, but we've written a bit about transitioning through the COVID pandemic situation and our next steps, really. So I'll just put that in the chat.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Cal and Lottie. That was brilliant. I just wasn't in Bristol for very long, but I was there for 6 months, and that would have been so useful to have found my way around all of the various sites and
Did
treasures.
we overrun? No time for questions.
No, you've got plenty of time for questions. I just come on like a slightly menacing presence on the side of the stage to let you know that's the end of your presentational spot. So now we're going to open it up. I've seen a few questions come up through the list, but I'll leave you two to field that yourselves. And the next time you see me will be as I usher you off the stage. But thank you very much and enjoy.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions from Katie Taylor. Could this be used as a temporary events, festival, cultural city activities, etc.? And how quickly could you add and change assets?
Yeah, it definitely could be used for that sort of thing. In terms of adding and changing assets, at the moment, the application is manually curated. So we gathered all the different events from different APIs and different sources, but the goal would be to work with people like the List or other aggregators like Visit Bristol to start to input their own data. And some of the stuff he was just talking about will allow venues and organisers to input live into mapping.
Great. Another question as well is on the mapping from Tom. So why do we choose to draw from aerial? Why not even take the data that's supplied from Google or from Bing or from wherever to supply this app?
I think that's one for you, Lottie.
So we draw from aerial to be able to have a royalty-free mapping database for our clients. So our clients really own the mapping, and it means that they don't have to pay any licenses. They can share the mapping freely through other stakeholders, through business improvement districts. But it also it allows us, as I said, to kind of curate what is revealed, and especially in terms of content, we do a lot of content generation with stakeholders to collate this information. And also, you know, any gaps that we have, we go on street and survey, and then that's a kind of back and forth between us and the client and the city and whoever to kind of reveal and tell the story that they want to be told. Because, you know, other kind of mapping platforms tend to kind of use a commercial kind of way to show the information, so you know, you get more, you know, people are on the map because they've paid to be there, and that doesn't necessarily show the true kind of activity and aspect of the city.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see what else is there. Susan, I really love the app. Are there any plans for other cities?
Yeah, definitely. In order, and I guess this touches on Kate's question below of how would you build this for another city, and the benefit in Bristol is that they've been a client for the past 20 years or so, so a lot of the resources already existed in terms of the mapping. It just took some digitization and some experimentation with zoom levels. So if another city were to want something like this, there would be a few options. We could draw the mapping completely from scratch for them and build it from the ground up, but also there are more cost-effective opportunities involved with using OpenStreetMap and Mapbox in order to restylize layers that already exist. I mean, OpenStreetMap is more crude than some of the mapping that we would draw, and because everything's done from aerial, we can be as accurate as we need to be, but also give the pedestrian layer a little bit more focus by creating minimum pavement widths and things like that. So there are options for other cities, for sure. Yeah,
just coming on the back of that, Sam's just posted a question, well, not a question, but he said talk to the List, and actually we have been in contact with the List before, just to understand what kind of APIs are out there and what information and what collaborations we could do to kind of get that information into our application. But yeah, we'll definitely check out that presentation. Another question, let's see.
Well, I'm going to jump in there. Actually, I haven't really got time for another question. And I think that question was probably mine, which probably take you on a different tangent, looking at community development and the possibility. But I'll grab you after the session to ask you about that. If that's okay. But
yeah.
Thank you, Cal and Lottie. That was brilliant. That was really interesting. A whole new approach and very person-centered, very personalised.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to now welcome to the stage Jason Hawthorne, the founder and Chief Digital Officer at VU.CITY, and James Gaskin, the Project Manager. James and Jason?
Hello.
Hi, hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, it's all right for now, but let's see.
Yeah, I've been having fun and games with my internet this morning. So thanks, Tom. Just to introduce us, Jason Hawthorne, I'm Chief Digital Officer of VU.CITY. We are a business looking at mapping cities. We came into existence about 5 years ago, and James is here as the project manager on the piece today. Just a bit of background. VU.CITY, it was really born into existence from a need to look at digitising planning and understanding, as we look at cities and their evolution, that being able to do everything on 2D plans is time consuming and difficult, adds to a lot of mistrust in the whole process, and also makes it very difficult for most people to be able to understand what that change looks like. So just over 5 years ago, we started creating a full digital model of London. And when I say started, we started with two businesses. One was Wagstaff's Design, which are a digital agency specialising in design and comps for the development world. And the other was GIA, who are a surveying practice who specialise in microclimate analysis. And we came together primarily because Wagstaff's had the tool sets, if you like, and the to be able to run large areas of modelling. And we were really using the game engines to create this. And we were at the advent of as game engines came forward into the industry using them. And GIA were modelling because they needed to understand context surrounding their schemes in terms of how they would affect their neighbouring properties. And they built out about 80 square kilometres of London highly accurately. And so we combined and created VU.CITY from that base. And over the last 5 years, we've had fairly serious investment into VU.CITY, and it's essentially allowed us to scale to the point that we've now built up 20 cities in the UK. So not just London, which was our original aspiration. And when I say complete, I mean all of London. So all 33 London borough areas right out to the M25. So in total, that's 1,617 square kilometres of London built. And we have this as a software subscription model that people can apply to use. It's on a subscription that is subsidised for the local authorities. We're bringing out a free level of access for citizens shortly. And equally, we have a subscription model then for the developers and the community of architects and transport engineers and noise consultants that need to use it. But what I want to show you today is a piece of work that James and I were instigators of and involved really, which was we wanted to see how far we could take the model, because the photogrammetry, which is the process we use to build out London, takes us to, it's called a level of detail 3 or 300 in old terms of modelling, which is accurate in terms of the building shape and envelope and its height, all to about 15 centimetres. But we wanted to see what we could really do if we were to use the latest scanning and high resolution imagery. So James, I don't know if you're okay to play the video. I'll hide my screen as well so that, oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Great, thanks, James. So this is just a video that we wanted to show you essentially. So the project was actually in combination of work we did with the City of London, the NLA, and the scanning company MSA, and it was funded by, or part funded by Innovate UK. As with all the other videos you've watched today, there's a lag here obviously happening. This is fairly fluid in terms of watching the video, and we can post the YouTube link to look at this. But essentially what we did was we used laser scanning at street level to augment the model that we've created. And that allowed us to then make sure that we could build all of the modelling that you're looking at here to an accuracy millimetres rather than the 15 centimetres for the overall VU.CITY model. And also texture all of those buildings as well, and all of the street furniture and levels in the street. So essentially, we now have a representation of a huge area of the square mile. So the square mile, for those maybe not know London so much, the square mile is that central part where the big cluster is, when 22 Bishopsgate's just gone up, and the Gherkin is, and the walkie-talkie there in the foreground. And so that level of texturing and model has allowed us to essentially look at what would change look like through development and through schemes coming forward. If we want to start to look at those and look at that change, what does that actually mean for the human aspect and the human feel of it? Too often when we think about using models like this and digital models of any particular space or area, we concentrate very much on a kind of bird's eye view, or even if we're walking along the road, you're still looking at a 2D screen, as we all are today. But this is actually a full virtual reality application. So we heard earlier from Kate with Head Holiday that the Google Cardboard, you could run this in a Google Cardboard. I think the phone would probably struggle to use it. But once you get into the world of the Oculus and others, then this will run really beautifully. And the difference then is that you're actually at human scale looking at change. So here we go, we log into VU.CITY, and we can start this as a session. So the other thing that we recognise the difference between VU.CITY and here is that we wanted to think about multiple people in the space. So again, we're looking at this on the screen, but you have to imagine, for those of you who've been in VR, you're now in a VR headset and you're in an immersed experience. So if you want to understand the height or scale of a tower on the street that you're in, as you do if you're in that street, you have to look up. You have to be able to look up to see where the top of that tower reaches. And you can use the map and all of the user interfaces all in the video, in the VR as well. So you can use the handsets, click where you want to go to, and it will take you straight to the street at that point. And you can see here the user is spending some time looking up at the sky and being able to see. We can really start to think about what change would look like. So now this is, imagine we want to bring a new scheme into this area here. We can import the model from the architects. Now, in this case, it's a fairly rudimentary blue block, and there are some different options that we're maybe looking at in terms of massing and size. But this could be almost a photorealistic scale of model that's been brought in. But again, I think the other element that we recognised more as well from the sort of COVID world we found ourselves in was the multiplayer, taking advantage of the multiplayer experience of the game engine. So now we can, and these are all our colleagues who are testing this, but you could actually put lots of people into the same space where you can walk around together. You can look up, as Ed's doing there in the middle, and start to see this scheme and think, what is the overshadowing on this street, for instance? Will it have an impact? Does it feel right? It's at the right street level. What would the building be like when it meets the ground? So often towers are designed and they're very impressive from a distance, but actually what we really want to understand is what does it affect and how does it affect street level, and what's the animation at street level? So again, you can challenge and test all of these. And as you can see, it's not just one building, but you can start to look at the whole of the city. And we adopt and bring in all of the schemes that have come through into VU.CITY as well. We've got over 2,000 consented schemes in the VU.CITY model now as well. So we can bring all of those into this square mile piece. The traffic can follow the traffic data that's supplied by the traffic engineers. And we can also bring in things like microclimate analysis to think about wind modelling. And we do a lot, as you would imagine, with GIA around daylight and sunlight and effects on the ground of overshadowing. You can see we're moving the sun through the model. And you can look at that any day of the year or any time of the year to be able to understand those changes. So I think this little animation sequence would start to see some of that. And it doesn't stop you being above. In fact, when you're in VR, when you go up at height, it's quite unnerving because suddenly you're at scale looking down and feeling like you're literally flying through the model. But it means you can go into buildings as well, and you can start to think about what the views from different floors would be. And certainly something that we've been finding has been a huge advantage to the architects, thinking about where maybe the views out are best and how they could ensure that the schemes they're designing take best account of those views, and where they may actually find that there's other buildings blocking maybe views that they thought on paper were going to be good, and then realise as they build the schemes out that it's maybe not the view they thought. So here we are just walking around the street, starting to get a sense of the space, and you may even recognise some of this for those of you London-based, and you can walk along the street and start to see what change would look like, as I say, from that human scale. We've even got the markets in here as well, beautifully textured. So our aim essentially now is that we're starting to see this being used. We've actually been used a couple of times now in planning, and has gone to the City of London to be able to understand new sites and new schemes coming forward, because obviously getting the committee members on site at the moment is an issue. They can use the square mile, they can start to walk around, we can start to look at views from any given location. But ultimately our challenge here is to think about how would we expand this type of capture and modelling to the whole of our city models. There will be some complexity there just because of the time and energy taken to do it, and also what it would mean in terms of the data that would be trying to provide in one particular instance. But for now, the city, as you're seeing it here, is working particularly well, and we'd certainly encourage anybody who's got areas where they want to do this on master plans or at scale to come and talk to us and see what we can do. You'll see the surroundings there from the square mile area. There's the slightly greyer model, which is the VU.CITY model as well. I think somebody's popped in the chat there, VU.CITY links, which is great. So that's it in terms of presentation. I think probably there's some good questions here that we can get into. I don't know if James, you want to come back and join me. We'll have a look through some of the questions we've been asked to look at. So Gamey, you asked for the URL, so it is literally VU.CITY, VU.CITY. That will take you to our website and show you all of the cities that we've modelled to date. As I say, we've got 20 UK cities and 5 worldwide cities now as well. So yeah, grand.
Sure. So we've got a first question here, Jason, from Seb, and he says the views are really spectacular. IP issues, and do you have to license the likeness of the buildings?
It's a good question, so but we capture all the data ourselves. So because the data is in the public realm, in effect, all the buildings that we have that are in existence, we have rights to be able to build those out and model them and showcase what they look like. So we've got no issues there in IP, and equally we're not built on anybody else's data. So there's no reliance, for instance, on the London survey. A bit like we heard earlier with PopMap, we've collected and created all our own data. The new buildings, yes, there is in terms of what's coming forward, but actually what we've found, because of the way we've been working and creating this for the, I suppose for the decision makers first and foremost, was where we recognised was that if we built out a model on the scale we have for London, and then asked developers to engage with it, if the decision makers were not going to validate it, that would have been an issue. So right from the outset, we asked the local authorities if they would find value and use this, and I'm really pleased to say they did, and we've now signed up 28 of London's 33 local authorities and 6 other UK cities to use VU.CITY. And what that has really meant that there's an acknowledgement between the developers and the architects in helping us supply the models for consented schemes, that it's in their interest to apply those to the model. Now, consented is probably the important point here. The schemes that we show in VU.CITY have a planning consent, so there's no impact on them now showing their schemes. They've gone through due process to be able to build those schemes out. There may be in some time in the future where we actually do start to think about putting schemes in as they're going through planning, but we don't at the moment, so that takes us away from any of those issues.
Next question we had was from Stan, and he says, will this work inside common VR platforms like AltSpace and VR Chat, or are there too many data points? And also, can it be downscaled to work in these types of environments as well?
Again, Stan, I think you've probably hit on the right point that on those particular references, if you've got AltSpace and VR Chat, I think we would be struggling to run the VU.CITY model as a whole. Certainly we could downscale, or we could look at lesser areas. It's not often that you need the entirety. So if it was around a particular use case or a particular building, then absolutely we could do that.
Sure. We had some feedback from Lottie saying, love that you can use and view the maps to move around in VR. And then we had a question from Susan saying, can you move above street level?
Yes, absolutely, Susan. You probably saw, I think you probably posted and then saw, but you can be any level within the model. So you can fly around, you can literally be, Superman or Wonder Woman flying around above street level. Sorry, I watched that film last night, it's on my mind. But Justice League. But yeah, you can take at any point. The reason though that we were so keen to get to street level was because so often street level is the last possible available point that you can look at schemes, and you have no sense of human scale in terms of judgment. So traditionally, going back, we would have things like models made out of balsa wood that would sit in an exhibition, or you might have a fly through. But in any of these, you're either in a 2D space, 2D screen, or you're in a 3D environment where everything is so small you're just godlike looking down. VR is the first time that we can actually start to think about what it means to be a human in the space with the change, and that's something that we were really keen to explore, is to think about what that would mean for us, for those using it.
It's also quite a strange feeling being super high up in the VR, isn't it? Yeah. It's a really weird feeling. The next question we had was from Martina, and she said, what are the other uses you foresee for this?
Great question, Martina. So you're right, we started with planning, we're thinking about architectural change. There's a huge area now we're exploring, which is around microclimate analysis, thinking about energy use linked to things like pollution and wind modelling. So we're doing a lot of work at the moment thinking about, and I'd never really thought about this until we kind of got into the area, but it seems obvious now, things like if you cut out all wind by making buildings so that they actually shield each other and you have no wind flows, you actually don't get rid of any pollution. So it's about creating a climate and a space, again, at human comfort levels, where you do have a steady breeze, you do move pollution through the streets. All of this can be tested in the models. We can bring in CFD analysis, so computational fluid dynamics, which sounds very grand, but it's basically think about water movement or air movement. And there's computation, there's computers that can run that analysis, and we can show the results of it in the model. We're also doing quite a lot of work thinking about advertising, but advertising not on the basis of putting people's adverts in as the platform to create revenue, but thinking about placement of advertising, how it looks, where it looks, how many people would see it, link that to mobile data. So when we start to think about, we can map mobile phone usage in terms of where people go. Obviously, it's all aggregated and anonymized data, so you don't see anybody individually, but you can understand footfall in an area. That also leads on to some of the issues that we've got in the city where pavements aren't wide enough now. Genuinely, before pre-COVID, there are spaces in London where you can end up queuing on a pavement now to walk to get to the tube station, which seems bonkers, but this is only going to be exacerbated as more and more of these large towers come on board. So pedestrian modelling is huge for us as well. And the final one there, just to touch on, is insurance risks. There's a huge area around resilience of buildings, around insurance. Again, the best example I can give there is thinking about when we link with flood risk, is there's a lot of buildings that just by the nature of IT, when they were installed all in the basements. Of course, if you're building floods, the one place you don't want all of your expensive IT equipment is to be sitting in your basement. So when we combine insurance and flood risks, we can start to look at resilience and how maybe resilience can be planned differently for different buildings.
So we had a comment from Katie saying, how about a collab between Holiday, PopMap and VU.CITY?
I think it's a great question, Katie. I could certainly see that there's conversations we could all have for sure. PopMap, I mean, it's really interesting to see your Cal and Lottie, the map that you've done of Bristol. You didn't get a chance to answer my question, but I asked about terrain. One of the things that we do with our models is we capture the terrain and the height changes. That's obviously very important in terms of building relationships. But you capture more detail in terms of street furniture and things. So I think, and the pedestrian routes would be really interesting to think about how that might work within what we do. And I think the head holiday, I love the idea that as one of the areas that we're opening up is going to be a marketplace for more and more content. And that whether it's free or whether it's provisioned, and there's a cost for different elements. But I'd love to think that at some stage you could use head holiday and you'd have footage that's been filmed, by Kate and Lisa, that's actually you could access through VU.CITY. Would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next question was also from Katie, and I think we've probably covered expanding into other sectors, but she also says, are your main clients planners and local authorities?
So they were very much, Katie, when we started. As I say, that was where we went for first, was the planners, well, especially the local authorities, to make sure that they would validate the use of this. And in fact, they're actually mandating the use of 3D models now. And we're really helping the sort of MHCLG call for digitising planning. We feel that we answer lots of the questions that have been asked of development and the whole world that PropTech is sort of involved in. But we find ourselves now with our greater users are the developers and the architects and the other consultants. So, which was probably always, we recognise really as our sustainable sort of economic model. And by that, I suppose the one thing we recognised if we started on this journey was that it would be incumbent on us to keep these models up to date. Lots of people have modelled areas of cities before, but what they've not been able to do is to keep them current. And so our subscription model and economic model allows us now, and I'm really pleased to say that we've literally just tipped over the $1 million ARR mark, means that we can actually keep all the models current, which is great. I see Tom's back, so it's probably our time is up, is it?
Yep. Yeah. No, I've reappeared, but thank you for doing my work for me, and just a seamless transition straight into an interesting question and answer session. So perfect. But thanks for that, James and Jason. That was really interesting, and thank you to all of our speakers, to Kate and Lisa, and to Cal and Lottie. This has been a really interesting session, giving us 3 different approaches to sort of visitor experience within space, and I think it's just been fascinating. Apologies though to Susan and Stan, who I know had questions. Approach James and Jason after the session and take from there. Okay, thank you all. Fantastic. Just to remind you that we've got the Meet the Researchers number 4 session due to start in about 15 minutes. So quick coffee break, and everything is being recorded and will be made on demand, and we'll send you the links as soon as they're available. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
I don't think I'll ever forget my first day at Factory 42. News of a possible national lockdown because of COVID had just broken.
We had actually launched a new experience in the Metro Centre in Gateshead.
Had moved into full production and ready for a performance in June 2020.
We had created and established an amazing story with Aardman. All our technology was in place.
2020 seemed to hold so much promise, yet all across the creative sector, the impacts of the pandemic were felt. And this is a story of some of the projects that were supported by the audience of the Futures Challenge and the Creative Industries Clusters program, and how even the best laid plans were disrupted.